All right, I believe Carrie is going to explain how everything works today, so which is just we're very excited about. But anyway, once again, welcome to the first virtual sales and marketing council meeting for the Maryland Building Industry Association. I'm Celie Holmes. I'm the chairperson. I want to welcome everyone, and I want to thank everyone for signing up. Obviously, in these unprecedented times, we all want to feel like we have control over things, and sometimes business as usual gives us the control we need, but we also want to recognize the sensitivity to getting a group of folks together. But we can do it this way. We can see everyone's face. We can hear what's going on in their world professionally. We can hear what's going on in the market professionally, and it's a feel good. So we're going to be doing several more of these as long as we need to. And there may be times where we just decide to do them because it's summer and we know folks are out doing things. And if you can't watch it here, you can watch us on the replay on our Facebook Sales and Marketing Council page. So once again, welcome. We have a great turnout, and I'm going to turn it over to Carrie Swift, our staff liaison at the Building Industry Association, and let her explain how it's going to work so that we can all get the most out of today's presentation. And I'll jump back on towards the end. Carrie, it's all yours.
Thanks, Celie. We hope you guys are all doing well. It actually is really cool to see so many faces out there. At the end of the meeting, we're going to have some time for everybody to unmute, play their video, and talk and connect and find out about what's going on for you individually if you want to talk anything out with the group. So what I'm about to do before Lori does her legislative and industry update is I've already muted everybody. I'm going to turn all of our videos off. So it's just going to be Lori. And then when she's finished, I'll hop back on and we'll kind of coordinate questions. There's a chat. You could, make a message there. I can play your video, or you could just type it and Lori can speak to it. And then we're going to go into the presentation by Dennis O'Neill and Tom Nelson, and we'll do the same thing. It'll just be them that you guys see. So all of our faces are going to go away for a little bit, but we'll all join back together at the end of the call. So I'm going to toss it over to you, Lori. This is Lori Graff, MBIA CEO, giving her update on many things.
Hello. Hope everybody's doing well today. So I'm going to start with just kind of a little bit of an MBIA overview. And again, I think Carrie will coordinate questions. So if anyone has any questions, please ask them at that point. And then then I'm going to talk a little bit about our legislative session. One of the things that we work hard on is making sure we're advocating for our members. So I want to make sure, while things are kind of crazy here, everybody still is focused on some of the things that we've worked on in Annapolis. So first of all, MBIA. So one thing that we've worked pretty hard on is making sure we're providing services during this crazy time for our members. We're basically focused on 4 different approaches. One is MBIA itself and our members and our events. Obviously, we clearly have postponed all of our April events. We're in the process of postponing all of our May events. I will say we are dependent on events. That's part of who we are and what we do. So we're trying to figure out how we move forward operationally through this time when we can't have events. For a lot of the events that we are postponing, we have kind of postponed them indefinitely because we're trying to figure out the right time to have them. Do we have them in the summertime? Do we have them in the fall? That type of thing. We have a lot of different things in the air that we're trying to balance. So our staff is here to help you though. We're operational. We're happy to help in any way we can. We've created several webinars to take place of our events. And then we have one next week on the economy. We're trying to do a lot of different things like that. If you have any topics that you think we should cover in a webinar, please let us know, because we're trying to build out a calendar around these webinars. I also want to give a shout out to Dennis O'Neill for helping us put those together and sponsoring that. So thank you, Dennis. But we're trying to focus on trying to make sure operationally we can do as much as we can for our members. Secondly, the second focus of ours is obviously our advocacy and making sure that the industry can move forward as much as possible in this time. So we've been working both with the state and the counties to make sure that we are on top of things and that they're moving forward as much as possible and trying to find workarounds on different things. We have on our website a county by county update on that. We are updating it every single day. We're reaching out to our counties, the state, to make sure that we know exactly what's going on. If you hear of any issues, and I know there's some people on this call that have reached out to me with issues that they've had specifically to job sites, whether it's inspections or permitting or elevators or any of those types of things, please reach out to me. Because we're working pretty much around the clock to try to make sure that the industry stays essential and that we can still build housing. So we're working on that. Another focus we have, and again, this is all on our website, is the small business resources. Every day they're coming out with guidance and different resources, and they're still working on things behind the scenes, the state, federal government, even the local governments. All of that stuff's on our website. Again, if you have any specific questions, I'm here to answer them. Or if I can't answer them, I can point you in a direction that somebody that can answer them. The last focus we've had, and this is a big issue for us, and trying to figure out the best way to get the word out, and the best way to get the word out is through our members, is job site safety. There's been a lot of news articles and press, and I'm sure you see social media about job site safety. The governor has come out with a new executive order saying that the health department can shut down any work site, and that's not just for our industry, that's restaurants or anybody else that's not operating safely. So we need to make sure that our members are operating as safe as possible. That's social distancing, that's all the other CDC guidelines. I'm working on doing some research on some other guidelines that we can use to make sure everybody's safe, but it's really, really important that we are doing that, and we're getting the word out to our subcontractors and anybody else that they need to practice these regulations, or we will be in danger of being shut down, either specifically at the job sites or as an industry. So that's the other focus that we're having right now. So having said that, again, if you feel free when we open up to questions to ask questions about that. We are trying to do everything we can to try to help our members as we go through this kind of crazy time. So I'm going to switch gears for just a minute to our legislative session. As you know, the big piece of what we do is trying to advocate for the industry to make sure that whatever's passed in Annapolis is not detrimental to what you guys do and to what your employers do as far as building houses. This was an unusual session. We had, it started off all about conversations about Kirwan Commission, education. Kirwan Commission's a $4 billion a year proposition starting in 2030 for education. Huge issue for our state. And the session ended early. First time it ended early since the Civil War. So this was unprecedented times. And they were obviously much more focused on the COVID-19 and the economy than they were on a lot of other things. Just to give you kind of an idea of how hectic the last week of session was. Session ended on March 18th. The Friday before that, well, the Thursday before that was when the governor came out and closed schools and that type of thing, and started closing down government buildings, social distancing, and that type of thing. So that Friday, there was exactly one bill, that had passed both chambers and was on the governor's desk. By Wednesday, there was 681 bills that passed. So it was quite the flurry of activities that kind of went through legislative session. It was very hectic for us to try to keep track of it all, pretty much from an arm's length distance, and she couldn't really have a lot of access to the building. So we worked furiously to make sure as much of our stuff either passed or didn't pass, depending on our stance on it. Overall, we ended up pretty well this session. Most of our priority pieces of legislation that we were opposed to did not pass. The only ones that did pass were amended with our amendments on them. So we feel like we did pretty good. And I will also say that even if session went to April 6th, which would have been this week, I think we still would have been pretty good shape. So I'm going to touch on just some of our highlights. Hopefully you have our link to our session wrap up. I'm only going to touch on some things that I think you guys would be interested in. There's a lot more of these. We put positions on 182 bills this session. One thing that we did see a lot of, and that was tax bills. There was a lot of tax bills this year. They're obviously trying to figure out how to pay for the Kirwan Commission. None of the tax bills dealing with corporate taxes passed. The only tax bill that passed was Senate Bill 2. Senate Bill 2 was a bill that dealt with digital downloads. So if you're downloading a song or you're downloading a book, you're not going to have to pay taxes on it. The other thing it did was increase the tobacco tax. It also introduced some taxing on vaping. And there will also be a ballot initiative to deal with sports betting. None of that stuff fully funds Kirwan. Kirwan Commission also did pass on the last day of session. It was amended, but none of the amendments changed the cost of it. So it will still be a $4 billion proposition. There was one amendment on it that did basically say if the state revenues go down by 7.5% in any given year, the program will be suspended. So this is something we're going to hear a lot more about in the coming years. It has funded for about 5 years. So they're going to be scrambling for the next couple of years to extend the funding and figure out other ways to fund it. So this will be a priority of ours moving forward. I will say, as a side note, obviously, the world is drastically different from March 18th to today. So I think it does remain to be seen what they do with that, if they end up making changes to Kirwan or whatever. But at this point, it's an unfunded mandate. So we will see what happens with that. That bill and all the bills got to the governor's desk, I believe, yesterday. He has 30 days to sign them. He can either sign them, they go into law, he cannot sign them, and then they go into law, or he can veto. I think he will veto Kirwan, especially just because of the cost and the accountability piece of it, but we shall see. So I'm going to go ahead and go through just touching on some bills. Like I said, there was a lot of tax bills, and none of those passed except for Senate Bill 2. So I'm going to just touch on a couple of them. Please feel free to ask questions later, or if I skipped something that you're interested in, let me know, and I'm happy to talk about any of these bills as we go forward. Obviously, our big focus in Annapolis is affordability, and anything that's going to make things more expensive or more difficult for you guys to sell houses or for builders to build. Those are generally our priorities. Senate Bill 75, this is business regulation, home builders performance bond requirement. This would require a home builder to purchase a performance bond for every house. We currently pay into a home builder's guarantee fund, which is meant to protect the consumer. This bill was a different way of protecting the consumer, a much more expensive way. We had gotten some estimates that it would have been $20,000 to $25,000 a house. So we worked with the sponsor and were able to get it withdrawn. I'll move down. There was a lot, as we always see every year, of bills that deal with condos. None of those bills passed this year either. So we'll be working on those over the interim. Senate Bill 350, House Bill 1446. This bill did pass. It was the Real Estate Association's bill, Maryland Association of Realtors, dealt with ethics and professionalism. We can get you a copy of that bill if you'd like to learn about it, but it's basically adding some requirements for ethics in the continuing education requirements. We can get you some more information about that if you're interested. Moving down some other bills that directly would affect you. We'll move down quite a bit here, actually. let's see. We had a lot of bills dealing with discrimination and housing practices and that type of thing. Senate Bill 1007, House Bill 728 would have extended how long someone has to file a discriminatory housing practice complaint. We were able to get that amended out to only dealt with employment discrimination. That bill did not pass. Senate Bill 1013, and House Bill 1149. This was the Social Housing Act. This bill, the premise of this bill was to create a mechanism for counties to be able to own some affordable housing units. We didn't have a problem with the concept of the bill. However, the funding mechanism was hugely problematic for us. The funding mechanism was for any property, so not just residential, but any property greater than $1 million in value. The transfer tax would have gone from 0.5 to 0.85%. Obviously, that was hugely problematic for us. The bill also limited the first-time homebuyer tax credit to properties under $250,000. So it got rid of it for anybody over $250,000. It also did, which this part of the bill was fine, for the people under $250,000. The tax incentive did get better. It went from 0.5 to 0.4 for first-time home buyers. That's not really in our market necessarily. It also had a $75 surcharge on all reportable instruments. So this was one of our priority pieces of legislation. We worked with the sponsor to try to minimize the impact. However, we just couldn't come to an agreement. We worked with the realtors on this bill as well. So we'll see this bill again next year, and we'll work over the interim to see if we can find him some other funding source. Moving down, House Bill 481. This was transportation commercial signs penalty. This is the second year in a row we've seen this bill. This bill basically increased the fine from $25 to $1,000 for, we're going to call the bandit signs or snipe signs that are in the state highway right of way. So we were able to defeat this bill as well. It's hard to prove who put the signs there. It's hard to, who do you fine, that type of thing. But it is a hard argument for us to make that we're putting out illegal signs, but we were able to defeat that bill as an unreasonable penalty. House Bill 517, this was a constitutional amendment dealing with environmental rates. It would have put on the ballot an amendment to the Constitution that would have said everybody is entitled to a clean and healthy environment. I think we all agree with that. I know I do, but the unintended consequence of this bill is that it would have increased standing for basically anybody in the state for any project. So we felt like there was an overreach and there would have been a lot of unintended consequences. We worked with the counties and the municipalities to defeat this bill as well. That's the second year in a row we've seen that one, and I would imagine we'll continue to see that one over time. Moving down, House Bill 929, State Real Estate Commission Property Managers Registration. This was actually a bill that was put in by the realtors. It needed a little bit of work. We worked with them over the session. Their goal is to try to prevent real estate agents that are lose their license from being able to be property managers with no consequences. So that's kind of what they're trying to get at. I guess there's a practice of this. It didn't move. This is a bill that probably would have gone if session was the normal length. We worked with them on some amendments. We'll continue to work with them on some amendments. There's still some language that's problematic for us, as well as I know some other groups have some issues with it. So we'll continue to work on that bill over the interim. Moving down, to, let's see. House Bill 1453, home builder registration and home improvement licenses, professional education requirements. This was a bill that was put in by a Harford County delegate. I met with her over the interim. She's put a couple of bills in that have aimed at more custom builders, that type of thing. There's been a few custom builders that have gone out of business in the Baltimore, Harford County region that have, in her opinion, reneged on certain deals, consumers as well as the subcontractors. So she's trying to prevent that from happening. There's been some investigative reporting on this and that type of thing. So I worked with her over the interim. She came up with some ideas that just really didn't work for our custom guys as far as trying to figure out, she wanted to put some money in escrow. She wanted to get some certain kind of insurance that really doesn't even exist. So I worked with her to try to figure out a solution for her. This was the bill she came up with. It wasn't a very good bill either. The MHIC piece of it was fine. It was more on the home builder side. It also would have required all the registered sales representatives to get to take a class. It was very unclear on what the class was going to be. I worked with her and the Attorney General, who actually also had the same concerns that we did on this bill. Never usually on the same side as the Attorney General, but we were on this particular case. We got the language struck dealing with the registered sales representative, and it just went to the home builder. But at the end of the day, quite honestly, the bill didn't do much, so that's why it didn't pass. I'm gonna have to go back to her and try to work on some solutions, because this is an issue that she's very concerned about, and we'll continue to work with her moving forward to see if we can come up with a better solution. HB 1628. This is a sales and use tax rate reduction in services. This was a bill that was introduced about halfway through session, purely to fund Kerwin. It would have raised about $2.9 billion a year. It basically would have taken the sales tax from 6% to 5%, and then increased who had to pay the sales tax. So it would have expanded it to all services, few exemptions. It would have really impacted realtors. It would have impacted the home building industry. We estimated a house that was $400,000 would have cost about $10,000 more with this bill. We were on the front lines of this bill, as well as the realtors and some other organizations. We put together some good pieces on it. We did an advocacy alert on it. We made some really good arguments about just housing affordability, which is a big concern of ours. And we were able to get the bill killed in subcommittee. I think that there's so many problems with this bill. I don't think we'll see it again for quite some time. I think we saw it again about 13 years ago. So we'll continue to monitor that. Again, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board to figure out how they're going to fund Kerwin, which is going to be a huge issue moving forward. So as far as session, those are the highlights that I think you guys would be interested in. Obviously, we have a lot of other things, some local bills that we dealt with. We had a priority that we were working on that we actually wanted to pass, which was dealing with the missing middle and modest homes and housing affordability, trying to get counties to really have to look at that as they move forward with their master plans. That was a bill that would have passed had a little bit more time. That was House Bill 1406, Modest Home Choices Act of 2020. But we'll continue to work on that issue in the interim as well. So that's kind of what I have. If anyone has any questions or thoughts on any of that, I know I went through a lot, but we're here as a resource to you guys, and that's pretty much all I have. So I don't know, Carrie, if we can open up to questions.
Yep. So if anybody wants, they can type a question down in the chat. If you guys see where the chat is down there, or you could take yourself off of video and mute and come on and do a question there.
Or nobody has any questions.
No questions? Well, they know where to find you, Lori.
Yeah, please email me. Also, if you have any thoughts on MBIA's operations or anything during this time, we're trying to adjust just like everybody else is, and we're trying to really focus on membership, trying to secure our membership as we move forward. So,
Lori, can you
Yes.
hear me?
I can.
Absolutely. I got a question for you. Do you know, I'm continuing to do stuff for Lennar and they've issued me a letter, so in case I get pulled over, I can show it like I'm gonna say. Have you heard of any instances in which, these letters that verify that, yes, I work for an essential industry have been, not accepted, or police just say that's bullshit, and then secondly, have you had heard of anything of people going from Maryland into Delaware to do work and then come back?
So the first question is, I have not heard that there's been any issues with the letters. I also know that, and I know that Virginia and DC are doing random traffic stops. Right this second, Maryland is not doing random traffic stops. So it's only if you get in an accident or you get pulled over for some other reason that you would need that letter. And I have not heard any issues with that at all at this point. And if anyone needs a template of that letter that has kind of some wording in it, we have one, so we can get that to you if you need it. As far as traveling to Delaware or Pennsylvania or Virginia or DC, there's no issue with that. I have called the Office of Law to get an opinion on that. They also have submitted an advisory opinion on that. I have that if you or interpretive guidance. I have that if anyone wants that as well. And they told me that they do not have any issues with people, especially in Maryland, where we're such a small state, traveling for essential services, obviously in a limited capacity. Their goal is to cut down on anything that's non-essential. Like, they don't want people just going to visit their aunt and uncle. Their other big concern is really the New York region. So if you do have business in New York, I would probably advise against that. But they're really concerned about having people come from New York, where it's just they're having so many problems up there, to our region. So that's their big concern. They're not, I've had many conversations with the Office of Law over the last 2 weeks, and they're really not trying to shut anybody down. They're not trying to hurt anybody's business. They're just trying to balance it with public safety. So
I'm sharing the link in the chat for anybody with the resources for all this sort of stuff. And then you guys already got the link on the legislative items that Lori talked about.
Okay, I had somebody just chat that said they have had somebody pulled over, and the letter was something that they needed to have. So definitely encourage that. Every jurisdiction's handling it a little bit differently. Looks like Laurel Police did stop somebody. I also had somebody ask me if any job sites, if there's any fines for job sites of 10 people if in the building. I have not heard of that, but the governor did come out with his health department initiative this weekend that says the health, they can shut down any jobs. So we strongly encourage everybody to do as much as they possibly can. I'm going to put on we had a builder that is, we're really encouraging people, and I know it's going to take longer to get the job done, but to try to have, 6 people or less in a house at any given time, that type of thing. So we really encourage people to follow that. We have lots of resources on our website. I'm working on getting some more guidance on that. I had somebody reach out to me about what about drywall, where it's very difficult to be 6 feet apart from somebody doing drywall. So we're working on getting all of that stuff. We'll get everything up on the website as soon as we have it. So we're trying to, I think it's really, really essential. I know it's hard. I know it's a challenge. The other challenge I've heard quite a bit from people is just getting the hand sanitizers and the other equipment, hand washers and all of that. We've also heard that people are taking stuff from job sites, those types of things. There's a lot of challenges out there, no doubt about it. But we're working on trying to get as much information as we can to our members. And if you hear of any of those things, please just shoot me an email. I'm constantly talking to members, constantly doing things like this. So any information we can get, information is key right now to our members, is helpful. So if you hear of somebody getting pulled over, please let me know. I know the state highway or the state police are not doing random checks, but it is good to know if local jurisdictions are doing random checks. Again, we have a template for a letter if you don't have one yet. I also just somebody asked me if I could have a template dealing with the interstate travel, and I just did that. So I have that as well if anyone wants that, because there is an advisory opinion on that as well. So, and then I've called the Office of Law to ask for very simple questions that people have. So please reach out to me if you have any questions about that. We're happy to try to facilitate whatever we need to get done to get our members moving on this.
Cool. Thank you, Lori.
Anybody else have anything?
No, but thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Okay. Sorry, there's a fly buzzing around me. Well, moments. All right. So, everybody, thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
I'm going to take you off, Lori. So, did everybody know that we have here two of the top home building online marketing experts in the country, and they both happen to be involved with our local SMC. So we are very lucky to have Dennis O'Neill of O'Neill Interactive and Tom Nelson of NDG Communications here to talk with us about what's the current climate online and what they're seeing. I'll toss it over to you guys. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Carrie. So first I will say, I'm sure many of you have got to be in the same place that I am after listening to that huge list of potential roadblocks that Lori went down. I'm just tremendously thankful that somebody is thinking about that, right? So thank you guys very much. All of those things that Lori talked about would clearly get in the way of doing everything we're supposed to do. So hugely beneficial. So we're going to try to keep it casual. You know, we've got a lot of information to share, interested to hear sort of what everybody's challenges are. But mostly what we wanted to try to talk about today was sort of what we're seeing or what we can sort of understand from the data that we're seeing in the Maryland market, right? There's been lots of data that we've shared and we've seen that it's sort of a national picture of how things are going. You know, what builders are seeing in terms of traffic all over the country. But the benefit, of course, of having this group is that we can think local, which we know obviously is a sort of the lens of everything that we do, obviously, is based on the local market. So we've got some data to share, and I'm going to share my screen in a second. So we're going to look at some Maryland stats. So Celie and Cindy reached out and basically said, hey, can we look at, you know, instead of looking at how builders are doing nationally, can we just sort of segment out some Maryland data? So that way we've got a better picture of sort of what we're seeing. You know, everybody's asking, you know, how is everybody else doing? Trying to make sure that maybe we're not missing an opportunity. So excited to share some of that data. So let me share my screen now. And all right, everybody see my screen, hopefully. So, so what I did was I grabbed some data. So this is a cumulative report that sort of encompasses many different builders, all based in Maryland. I did pull out the nationals. Just wanted to make sure that sort of some of that activity didn't skew our trends. But we want to be able to look at obviously website traffic to see if sort of that is almost always a leading indicator of what you expect to see from a sales perspective. You know, we always see today's website traffic is tomorrow's model traffic. So this graph is again just Maryland builders and encompasses a little over 2 million or so page views. So we're talking a pretty significant sample. But what we're doing, the blue line is 2019, the red line is 2020. So we started off the year up, which is, you know, sort of an expectation. We've seen that trend for years. But I put the two orange arrows for two of the important dates, sort of as where we see some of the news and media activity. So March 13th, that was the day that Trump announced the travel restrictions were going into effect. He actually announced them 2 days earlier, but it was Friday the 13th of all dates that the US started restricting incoming travel from other countries. And March 24th is one of the first dates where the the not so official shelter in place came in from Hogan. So interestingly enough, we've had good news since then, right? Which is sort of somewhat to be expected, right? Some of it is now everybody's home, so clearly maybe they're using the internet more. But I guess the good news is from this graph is that we're not seeing people spend all of their time just on Facebook or all of their time just reading the news media sites. That we're actually seeing some activity where people are shopping for homes. This is traffic on builders' websites, and we're seeing not just over the year up, but we're seeing sort of a trend and an upward trajectory. And this is data through yesterday. So this is January. So you can see sort of year-to-date trends here. Some other sort of highlights that I wanted to pull out. These are a little bit of a shorter span. I'm sorry, this one is actually January, but sometimes the question comes up, well, we're seeing a lot of traffic, but are those people doing what we want them to do? Are they filling out a form? Are they calling the model home? So this is goal trends. So for those of you that are not used to looking at Google Analytics a lot, a goal, excuse me, in Google Analytics is essentially something that everybody can define for themselves in terms of what kind of activities do they really want people to do. Most of the time that means click to call a phone number or fill out a registration form or schedule an appointment form. So the trend here is it's accurate from the sense that we can't necessarily know each individual goal of all the builders that are in this sample, but we can still assume that the goals themselves were consistent throughout the year. So what are we seeing as a change in activity? And again, you see those two orange arrows, same dates, March 13th and March 24th. And we've got this sort of lull of activity there, sort of through the end of January. And this is oftentimes where we start to see sort of that early spring market these days. So it's a little bit flat. But again, after the shelter in place, we see this spike in activity. So we do know that people are shopping. We can sort of, make the joke, but I think it's pretty accurate that with everybody at home, with their family and with all their kids at home, that I think everybody's, if you had any indication or any gut feeling that maybe your home was a little bit too small, after everybody's in their home together for a long period of time, I think it's probably pretty clear to a lot of people that they can't wait to move into something that works a little bit better for their family. And this one is the one that I wanted to give you an idea, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in some of the sections that we'll talk about coming up. But, mobile traffic is no surprise, right? So mobile traffic has been increasing from the times that it first became available. The first time that we did a cumulative report on mobile traffic versus desktop traffic was 2010. And at that time, the average builders saw about 6% of their website traffic from mobile phones. It's been over 50% on average for a really long time. So this blue section here is mobile traffic. Of the total of 100, blue is mobile, red is a desktop, and then we've got some tablet traffic, which is always sort of in that 10 to 12% range. It seems like it's been stuck there for a long time. But these two dates again, March 13th, March 24th, we see this steady number of 50. Apparently tablet usage picked up. I guess everybody was now stuck at home and they picked up the iPads that they hadn't been using for a while. But look at this. April 3rd, in the last week or so, mobile traffic here is about 70%. So when you start thinking about your website and what it looks like and what it's doing, and if it's providing what it needs to a home shopper, that is probably the clearest bit of data that you can find, that when you might be looking at your website on your laptop, on your desktop, but consumers are looking at it on the phone. So if you're trying to decide if you've got the right photos, if you have the right content, if people can find what it is they want, if they can find the phone number, if they can find the form, if they can find the contact buttons, don't look at it on the desktop. You should be looking at it on your phone. So With that, I'm happy to be joined by Tom Nelson, and we're going to try to keep it interesting and sort of pass back a few times and share some similar insights and some complementary data. So, Tom?
Yep, thanks, Dennis. And again, appreciate everyone giving us this opportunity here to speak to everyone. Grateful, as Dennis said, for everything that the association is doing for us here. And just want to take this opportunity to share with you guys what we're seeing, give you the opportunity for some best practices, and hopefully have some time left over to do some Q&A. Dennis shared some really great data with us, and we're seeing the very much similar with our same data set. I'm sharing my screen now. Very similar curves and things that what Dennis showed with you. What you're looking here is what our clients are seeing, again, aggregated for Maryland. And what we're seeing very similar results as Dennis is. I just did want to point out one thing to add on to what Dennis was basically saying here. And what I find very interesting is that we've all heard the stories that traffic is very strong. By traffic, we're not talking about walk-in traffic, we're talking about website activity. Lots of people on your website, lots of people engaging in the digital tools. But everybody saw this kind of decline, obviously, in registrations. This second chart here is actually website engagements. It's lead forms, registration forms, any sort of lead generating activity here. And as you can see, while we had a lot of traffic, we saw kind of a decline in registrations and lead generation. And I think a lot of that is definitely emotional, trying to figure out what's going on. But I also think what builders have done an excellent job doing, and I know a lot of people, I've seen some builders on this call now, I wanted to give you guys kudos because you had to very quickly punt, adapt, and explain to your website traffic that you could continue the home buying process online. And a lot of you have done that. So as the activity towards the end of March started to decline, and really this sharp decline was when Hogan put the stay in place order, it's spiking back up now from overall sessions and web activity, but our leads are starting to pop back up as well. I think a lot of that is, Dennis mentioned the pent up demand that we expect. If one of the main reasons why someone wants to purchase a home outside of, a life change, you have a baby or you're getting divorced or things of that nature, it's dissatisfaction with the current home. We've all been probably our third to fourth week of shelter of staying at home. So if you didn't love that home before, you certainly don't love it now. So, we're hearing a lot of information about the quality of the traffic is really, really strong. People do have interest. The investors aren't as much in the market. But I also think that this increase in lead generation that we're reporting on is the builders doing a great job of communicating how you can actually transact in this environment. Punting and making those, I've seen a lot of your websites that say, here's our path to actually purchasing a new home in this current environment. So I just wanted to point that little piece of data that we're seeing. And as long as our website sessions continue to increase, I do expect the lead quality to stay strong, but I also expect the volume to increase as well. And I think a lot of that is attributable to the builders embracing that they have to change and they have to make it clear that they can transact in this environment, even though they're not physically doing it in a sales center.
Yeah, completely agree. I think that I've seen a lot of very quick and timely updates to most builders' websites that are making that sort of a very prompt, very early introduction to say, schedule a virtual tour or chat with us online, right? I mean, I feel like that was a pretty impressive quick reaction, despite the fact that we've been talking about how the sales process has been moving virtual for a really long time. I think pretty much everybody was immediately put in a place where you really had no choice. We were sort of forced, a lot of people were forced into this sort of new normal, but I think it's the way consumers have been heading for a long time. We're just, maybe now this is our opportunity to catch up a little bit as an industry, yeah?
Yeah, I completely agree. Now that we've kind of shared some data with you, kind of what we're seeing today, just wanted to share some best practices as well to try to capitalize on this. We already mentioned a lot of you are doing some really great stuff over communicating your virtual sales process. Great job there. As you look at both of our data sets, as you can see, we're looking at data week over week. Yeah, a lot of you were in the habit of it, as were we with some of our clients, of looking at monthly data and then really doing that in a year over year, month over month comparison. Month over month can be tricky, as you know, because of our sales cycles with spring market, fall market. But then, so lots of times, if you're trying to understand, is it good or is it bad, you're comparing it to where you were this time last year, assuming community counts and things like that are consistent. But what we're basically saying is that right now we kind of have to throw all that out the window. We are not comparing apples to apples year over year, month over month. As you know, everything's changing daily. So really, our recommendation is that you're looking at your data every week. Look at those main metrics of sessions, users, website registrations, site actions, like what people are actually doing on your website, how are they engaging? And if you're doing any digital advertising, as you should be, any leads that are created directly from platforms that do send you actionable leads, like third-party listing sites like Zillow and New Home Source with BDX, Realtor.com, or Facebook lead ad forms, any of those. And we're advising you to reallocate as much of your budget as you can to those digital tactics. And in addition to that, if we're all concerned about, how long this is going to play out and conserving cash and things of that nature. So pulling back on your marketing spend by, 20% is absolutely appropriate and reasonable, but you should not be stopping. But what you can do is you can get that savings by just reallocating some of your budget from other tactics that you would normally be doing at this time, and really changing them and pushing them to more digital lead generation. So our rule of thumb, and Dennis and I spoke about this earlier, and we're both kind of seeing the same thing and making the same recommendation, is reallocate your funds to tactics where people are looking for you. We're talking paid search. We're talking listings where they are actively seeking out homes, communities, listings, and builders. And that's what you want to do. High funnel actions, we might want to pause for right now. We definitely need to pause wayfinding tools right now because people are sheltering in place in Maryland, or hopefully they're adhering to the mandates. Reduce your weekend directionals, if not completely turn them off, and reallocate some of those funds to more digital tactics. Discontinue geofencing, because again, we're just not having that many people out and about these days. I had a great conversation with a Maryland builder where we were talking about, the other reason to possibly reduce, if not discontinue, weekend directionals is because, as you noticed, Hogan just announced that they can shut down an unsafe job site. He's very mindful of everyone adhering to the rules, and we don't want to give the impression that we as builders are trying to convince people to stop sheltering in place and come to our communities. So there's a lot of thought on there about reallocating some of those more traditional sources that in a normal environment you'd be doing, reallocating those dollars to digital, or if you feel your digital spend is pretty strong and what you need, then just saving those dollars because none of us know how long this is going to last.
Totally agree. So some other things that we can do, I think some of the other things that Tom and I were talking about in terms of collecting together some sort of actionable advice, is to consider, amongst those other things, what has changed in the buyer's context, right? So if we know that they're not, they're supposed to be staying home, right? They're not supposed to be getting in their car. And we can sort of presume that oftentimes as a prospect was shopping builder websites, that they were looking at homes, they were looking at communities, and they were partially, eliminating ones that didn't fit, but they were also thinking about which ones they would want to go see, right? Which ones that was always, I think for most people, that was part of their expected path, that they would continue shopping online, but eventually they would go see places, go visit your model homes. And that is when that's possible is a whole lot foggier than it's maybe ever been. So we need to consider this prospect's new context, right? Like when they're looking at your website, they're no longer thinking, well, I might go see that next week. They don't know when they're going to get to see it. So we have to think about the content that we're sharing with them and how much more valuable that is to them now than it ever was before, right? So this is a great opportunity because content is probably one of the most neglected components, I would say, of builder marketing in general and builder websites. This is an ideal time to review every piece of content that's on your website. We talked about not just, obviously, again, just as a reminder, not just desktop content, but mobile content. Not that the content's different, but you need to look at it to see how it's displayed on that mobile device, because that's how most of your shoppers are seeing it. So, you know, descriptions are probably one of the weakest points, I'd say, in most builder websites. If you're, you know, if you're looking, if your floor plans don't have any text that describe them, if they don't have, you know, sort of have any sort of insight into how a home or a floor plan might live, now's the great time to be able to do that. Even if you're not a writer, hire a copywriter. They all work from home, just like the rest of us these days. So those people are certainly still available to help you improve that content. Photography, you know, your salespeople, well, they might still be doing on-site appointments. Salespeople don't necessarily always take the greatest of photography, but some photo is better than no photo, right? So consider what the opportunities you might have to take photos of the homes, of the community. Lots of different possibilities there to increase and freshen up the content. Because again, people don't, it's not like I can look at a dress and say, well, that's not that far away, maybe I'll go drive by next week. People aren't really supposed to do that now. So if we don't give them some more content, there's got a bigger question mark, and content is more important than ever, because if your competitors have it and you don't, you're a whole lot easier to forget about. Virtual tours, you know, maybe Lori might slap my hand for mentioning this, but virtual tour companies are still working, like within the last 7 days. So if you have model homes and you don't have a Matterport tour, that kind of virtual tour that's available on your website, there are still companies that you can call that will come out and do a fresh Matterport tour. So, you know, now's the time to be thinking about that too. If you're missing them, you know, get them done, get them all done. Another big opportunity, like Tom mentioned, we were talking about how it really makes sense. It always makes sense, but it makes even more sense now. You know, that you try to exhaust all reasonable possibilities to reach somebody who is actively in the market for your product before you spend dollars trying to reach people who may or may not be in the market, right? All listing sites are reporting huge spikes in activity. So Zillow, BDX, New Home Source. So if you're not already on Zillow, if you've been putting it off, if you're considering adding BDX, now would be the time to have a fresh conversation. Might be a great opportunity. So we know people are using those sites. And the other thing that comes to mind when we think about like, what can you do right now? There is, depending on how many builders here on the call have online sales counselors, either if you do, or your leads go to your on-site reps, whatever the case is, there is zero excuse not to respond immediately. We know the buyers are home. When they're filling out the form, they're most likely they're at home, we're at home. So there's no reason whatsoever that we shouldn't be able to get right back to them. Because I can tell you that those builders and your competitors that do have that system in place, they're absolutely going to be responding immediately. So not like that's not been important before, but I would say that what we've all been dealing with in terms of just the changes of daily life has made all of these sort of things that you've been hearing about, and sort of everyone's been preaching the value of the online experience. It just amplifies the importance of every single one of these pieces.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Back to the OSCs, absolutely. The communicating fast, we say be that communication ninja. You know, talk with them often and frequently. We've got to protect the backlog. A lot of the sales that were reported in March was not people who had just visited your website for the first time in March. Those were leads that have been in the pipeline for 30, 60 days. So we really have to start looking towards the future and knowing that, you know, the sale that we may get in April, May is going to be the person that we're talking to now. And, you know, we have to understand the emotions that are going through right now. Their possibly hesitancy to continue their information gathering, but maybe they're not sure if they should transact right now for a myriad of reasons. But just we need to be nurturing and communicating and focusing on following up, and with every single lead we've got to protect that backlog and nurture those new leads that come in. The other thing is, especially as it relates to OSCs, a lot of OSCs have an automated email marketing campaign, a lot of marketing automation that goes out. You may even have that at the community levels on behalf of the salespeople. As Dennis was talking about, review all the content, absolutely, from marketing and advertising, but not just your lead gens, your ads, and your website content. Look at your marketing automation. Sometimes that happens, that can be set it and forget it for builders. Go back and make sure that all of your call to actions and your messaging in there are still accurate. You don't want to have an automated email that you developed, 6 months ago. That's called, where the call to action is, hey, come see me at the community, come visit on site. We have to append those messages temporarily right now to deal with the state that we're in, and make sure that those emails are still appropriate and aren't sounding tone deaf because they're not relative to the current crisis. Dennis mentioned virtual tours. Couldn't agree more. A lot of you already have the Matterport tours. The one advice that we are recommending, since now, before, as early as a week ago, you could still send a prospective shopper who is interested and has done the Matterport tours, saw the videos, loves the home, but now their questions are about the home site. It was like, okay, well, go drive in the car, go drive through the community and take a look at that. Well, again, Hogan doesn't want us doing that, and we want to be respectful of that. So we're saying, go get a virtual tour of the home site. And if we can't hire someone to come do that, or you don't want to spend the money, we can send the salesperson out with their iPhone and do a nice 360 tour on their phone, do the panoramics, whatever you need to do, or offer to FaceTime and walk the lot themselves, since they are still allowed to be on site as an essential business. But let's let them see what the home site looks like virtually as well, to just try to help them get one step further to making that purchase decision.
Yeah, agreed. One just quick note also on that, Tom. We were I want to share just a potential opportunity for those that are using Zillow. Zillow has a mobile app. They call it the 3D Home Tour app. So if you can't get a Matterport virtual tour person, or you don't have virtual tours, and you need to have an option to get something quick, so Zillow has an app. It's called the 3D Home Tour app that will accept photos from this camera. It's called a Ricoh Theta. I have one. It's super easy to use. Essentially, you set it on a tripod, you press a camera button, it connects to your phone, and it takes a 360-degree photo of whatever room you put it in. There's examples on the Zillow site. As you can see, the camera itself is a little less than $400, so it's not super affordable, but not that difficult necessarily either. And I wanted to see, there's some examples, here we go, of how the process itself can actually show up on Zillow. So if you don't have an outlet for Matterport, or you want to be able to have an opportunity to do 50 different virtual tours of many, many model homes, and you don't want to spend $500 a pop for the Matterport, you spend $400 for one camera, you take the photos yourself, and Zillow, you're allowed to be able to upload them directly to Zillow. So just a good sort of quick way to drastically improve your content and be completely in control of it at the same time.
Absolutely. So these are some real tips and information that you can use right now. And many of you probably are already doing that. But again, like we said, look at all the content, make sure your call to actions are appropriate for what we're seeing, and try to make sure that you're addressing all opportunities to allow someone to migrate through that buyer's journey virtually, but also understanding the the emotions that we're dealing with. And that kind of leads us to what should we be doing looking forward as well. One of the things that we're recommending is that we have to embrace this self-service mentality, this virtual sales process. That's been out there in the marketplace for a very long time. You've heard the term iBuyer and Zillow Offers and Redfin and all those that can actually transact and purchase a home online. That demand for that is only going to increase. It's not going away. There will be no, everything gets back to the way it was. You really need to embrace the new systems that you've worked so hard to create over the last couple of weeks, so that you can give that shopper, when we get on the other side of the shelter-in-place mandates, that if they are comfortable virtually transacting, which we know consumers are. I mean, look at Carvana. You can purchase an entire car without ever, speaking to anyone. You can do it all virtually. And we used to always say that home building was insulated from that because our decision process is so long, our transaction is so complex. People go into debt for 30 years, but we're seeing more and more consumers being way more comfortable in that virtual experience, and almost expect it because it's how they expect to be able to buy everything. Everyone's doing a great job of punting and creating a process to be able to do that right now. Don't give up on that, because the consumer expects it to be here to stay. And just think about the flexibility that you're offering all of your potential prospects, when you could, have them go through the sales process at the point of sale in your sales centers, but also virtually as well for those that want to. It just opens up more opportunities for you to meet the needs of the buyer. So don't think of this as a short-term quick fix. Think of this as, a process that, yes, you had to develop quickly, and you might want to make some optimizations and improvements, but a virtual sales process should be an offering that every builder makes beyond this event.
Completely agree. Yeah, the skills that we are being forced to absorb today are really the ones that will serve us very, very, very well in the future. I think that the world is it is cliche, yes, but somewhat true. I feel like everyone's world is a different place in the last 30 days. Everyone has really endured a lot of change very, very, very quickly. So I think I guess my just a final thought or so that that sort of, I think, helps maybe ground some of the conversation. I feel obviously people have been in sort of very short-term thinking modes, right? Like, I don't want to say panic, but a lot has changed, right? We're not looking, we're looking a couple days ahead as opposed to months ahead, like we would typically do when we're thinking about sales planning and marketing. And I guess I would just encourage anyone in sales and marketing to sort of not get too stressed out by the tools. Obviously we're talking about, we talked about a number of different tools and tactics in the last half an hour. In the last 30 days, you've heard people tell you that Zoom is the best thing ever, that Hangouts is the best thing ever, that no, you should use FaceTime, you should use this chat, you should use that app, you should use this virtual tour. All of those things are just tools, just like the graph that we looked at for website traffic is just data, right? Those tools and the data and the information alone doesn't really do anything by itself, right? It's your interpretation or how you implement those things that actually make a difference for your business. So when you sort of, when you have trouble, right? When you're thinking about like, okay, which one of these things should I do? Which app should I sign up for? I would say I'd encourage you to find that sort of balance in the fact that many things still haven't changed, right? Your customers' needs haven't changed. They're still looking for a home that's going to make their life and their family's life better. Your organization's mission still hasn't changed, which is to build homes. I'm hopeful that we all have mission statements that are a bit more robust than that, but that's essentially the core piece of that. That hasn't changed either. So all of these tools and all of this information is really now just sort of up to you to interpret. It doesn't matter whether or not you use Zoom or FaceTime or whatever other tool it is. It matters that you're still asking yourself, what is the most important thing I should be doing now to meet my customers' needs and to accomplish my organization's goals? And the tools themselves will just fall into place after that, because you're going to accomplish all of these things with many different tools. So it's not about the tools. It's about you staying focused on your overall goals. And then you'll decide which ones will help you get there the best.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, point two, is that, as everybody is adding to their arsenal through some of those tools, the one thing we also can't get mindful of, and we can't get complacent on, is thinking that the tool is going to solve our problem. While it adds a value to that, we also have to understand the needs and wants of the home buyer. And part of that is not just beds, baths, square footage. It's also where they are emotionally right now. If the shelter in place is lifted tomorrow, it doesn't mean that next week traffic goes right back, walk-in traffic goes right back to where it was. There's going to be this lingering safety concern. Again, behavior will be changed permanently, and we need to think about that. While I do absolutely, in my heart of hearts, as I said earlier, believe there will be pent-up demand of people who are just completely dissatisfied with their home now that they've, been forced to spend 24 hours a day in it for several weeks. At the same time, home is a very emotional decision, and we can't lose that. We can't just assume that, oh, well, we've given you this digital tactic, go ahead and take it. We need to understand the emotions that are in the decision-making process. We also have to realize too, even if this crisis ends relatively quickly, we're on the heels of an upcoming election. And historically speaking, at least for our clients, what we've seen is every 4 years at election time, usually around August, we have a weaker than expected fall market because consumer confidence dips because of the emotions and the rhetoric that's being run high. And that's not a political statement. That is just literally during the elections, there is so much information, so much rhetoric that makes people fearful to make a long-term decision at that point. It usually rebounds post-election, and December is usually a pretty good month. But we have this other wave that's coming back. We're still going to have some people scared to come into the sales center. They're still going to be worried about and social distancing will be on their mind. And then there's the election cycle too that's going to scare people to think, is it really a good time to buy right now? Because, both parties the rhetoric's just so bad, saying that it's Armageddon if they don't get elected. So there's a lot of this that is going on. So we really got to work harder in our messaging and our storytelling to convince buyers that, we really, it's a wise decision. Interest rates being low and things of that nature, which are all the analytical sides, but also the emotional side of it. That regardless of what's going on in the world, look at how important your home had to have been to you during this crisis. And let's make sure we capitalize on that. And again, I just encourage you not to go backwards, to really take advantage of the new processes and digital tools. And you're going to have to think about how that's going to change your home buyer's journey. Because as I said, there's still going to be lingering effects from this that people are going to be thinking about in terms of safetiness and cleanliness and things of that nature that may persuade them to want to move further in the process digitally than they would have, say, 6 months ago. There's a lot of great technologies out there. We talked about them, Matterport tours to do virtual tours, being able to do interactive floor plans, but then also, our company created another service called UTour, which is unattended access, which would allow someone to go and schedule a tour to actually view a inventory home or a model home self-guided. And that's a lot. We built that company based off of the need for convenience that we were getting. We did some surveys and found that people wanted the convenience of being able to tour their homes after hours, because 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., which are most model hours, weren't convenient for them. But there was some sales avoidance. They didn't want to talk to a salesperson until they were ready. But now there's going to be this whole other aspect of it of wanting to tour the home without a salesperson because they have a nervousness and the social distancing and they want to, do it independently. So there's tactics like that and new technologies that are out there that we're going to have to embrace, because we can't just assume that if the shelter in place is lifted next week, that the week after that, everything goes back to normal. So keep all of this in your decision-making process. Understand the home buyer's journey at a level you probably never have before because you haven't had to dig as deep as you have had to the past 2 weeks. And just find those opportunities, as Dennis said, where you can continue to help them and meet their needs and be able to do that, whether it is through a one-on-one appointment in your normal process or through a digital appointment. Because I really believe that this isn't a temporary fix that eventually goes away. I think this is going to be a much larger portion of how you do business moving forward.
Agreed. I love the unattended access component. I mean, when we were chatting the other day, we sort of joked, for those of you that live in counties where car dealers aren't open on Sundays, I always see more people on a car lot on a Sunday when I drive past it than I do any other day of the week. And that's because they know that they can go wander around the car lot and there's going to be no salespeople there to talk to them. So makes perfect sense. People want to shop that way. They just do.
I think we're coming up on our time deadline here, so I don't know if this is an appropriate time to open the floor for any Q&A that's necessary, but we did want, Dennis and I wanted to be available and answer questions or address any specific questions or concerns anyone may have. We want to get you that info.
So, hey guys, it's Carrie. I do notice that some things in the chat. Did you guys happen to?
Let me pull here.
So Laura and Chris both had 2 things to say.
Yeah, Laura, I totally agree that, promoting that the model homes are open, and I'm looking at Chris's is somewhat related. I feel like, obviously respecting the stay-at-home directives, the fact that we're still, we're still considered essential. I guess the question is right, construction and home building is considered essential, but I don't know that anybody wants to be forced to sort of argue about the sales staff being essential. So we probably should just be careful to make sure we don't open up a door for maybe some arguments that we don't want with the state. But most of the time that I've seen, and I think maybe we should open it up to maybe some other attendees to help answer some of the questions. I feel like most of the builders that are, the model homes are appointment only. So the salespeople might be there, but the doors are locked to make sure that, we don't just have sort of random people walking through, just to try to enforce the social distancing so you don't end up with a bunch of families in your model home at the same time. That seems to be the way that I know of that most builders are handling that sort of activity in the model home.
Yeah, and Julie, thanks for your question here about cleaning in between the visits. Absolutely, we're recommending that. We are in discussions with Home Advisor right now to offer that service to builders in between. But for many of our builders that are using our platform, we are only offering tours every other hour for them to register to come there, because what we're doing then is notifying the builder every time a tour has occurred so that they can clean and disinfect surfaces, wipe down countertops and door handles and things of that nature. Absolutely, yes, we are doing that, and communicate that as well. If you are going to do unattended access, let people know that that is one of the values, not just being able to self-tour the home yourself, but that also it's a safe environment, because in between tours we're cleaning as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, next question. How do you think direct mail will be affected? Well, our thought is we can still have direct mail can definitely be effective if the call to action is to then get them from a traditional platform to a digital platform. It's really about the call to action. Obviously, come to the community, tour our models, all of that is really gone. We can use direct mail to try to get to some people and have them come in. But I have heard some stories from some of our clients and some anecdotes about people, if it's non-essential mail, they're scared to touch it, and they're throwing things like catalogs and magazines right in the garbage because they don't even want to bring that into their house because they're just very nervous about dealing with mail right now. Mm-hmm. So that is one of the things we have to be mindful of. But at the same time, direct mail targeting is very much like digital targeting. You get extremely specific, and you can get that direct, that one-to-one direct to that consumer. Just make sure that the call to action, that direct mail, is driving them to a digital solution.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think, the virtual tour, maybe promoting virtual tour shopping if you still have direct mail that you're committed to or want to do or strongly believe in it, if you've had success with it in the past. I would think maybe promoting virtual tours, go to the website, view a virtual tour, shop from the comfort of your home, that kind of thing, shop from your sofa. And some that makes sense. The thought about the germs and things like that, about not wanting to touch the mail that you don't necessarily have to. I think one thing to keep in mind, one of the sort of other considerations maybe, as I'm just trying to think about how somebody would react. I think about, if somebody's not getting out of their house, the process of walking to their mailbox sometimes might be an exciting thing. So who knows? Maybe there's a highlight in there somewhere.
Hey,
Somebody on
highlight
the
of the day,
channel they haven't
exactly.
seen,
Right.
So
Absolutely.
crazy days.
Are there any other questions or anything we can address? I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. All right.
Thanks everybody for listening. Hopefully everybody got dressed up for our SMC meeting today. I know I put on my good sweatpants. So hopefully everybody feels like they were at the office today.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again to MBIA for having us. Dennis, thank you for your great information, and appreciate all of you joining us and having this forum to share and learn. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to say thank you. This is Sealy. I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you to Lori for the legislative update. I think that's key right now. The communication of information, which for those of us that live in Maryland from Hogan, has been fantastic. And I think Lori has done and her team have done an awesome job in updating the Facebook page and sending out updates. It's what we all need. The fear of the unknown is always scary. So being on the side of information is great. So thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Tom. It's been awesome. We appreciate that.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Sealy, for saving me from being muted to a
I know,
SMC
it's
meeting of
okay.
32 people.
I know, and yeah, so I can't unmute my face. I'm surprised I can unmute my thing, but
Okay.
anyway.
Well, so if everybody wants at this point, we thought we could have kind of a discussion. If you want, I'm not gonna unmute everyone, but we'd like y'all kind of to put your video on, and if you have something to discuss, it doesn't necessarily have to be based questions towards Tom or Dennis, just stuff you're seeing, stuff you're feeling, ideas you have for what MBIA can do to help you, your company, the industry through things. So if people want to hit their little camera, I guess maybe I will do it for you, because maybe it's not letting you all do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I muted everybody, sorry. Whoops. All right. Sorry, just trying to think of the best way to get you all back in here. I'm looking for a text from somebody who might have a better idea. Okay, it's not letting us. Dennis, you can also click on the little things to let people back in on the cameras, since you're a co-host.
I see that. So,
All right,
Okay.
I'll start doing it as well.
You don't have to, I just, thought we could all check in face to face.
Did we not unmute all, or?
Well, I did, and then it was really loud, and I feel like I was like, somebody could have had a TV on, and I didn't want to. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and you can remute. Here's your fair warning. All right.
Carrie, this is Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Hi. Sorry, my work computer, for whatever reason, I can't figure out a camera. But anyway, I'll give you a quick update on seeing on the mortgage market, if that's useful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Interest rates have, they bottomed out about 2 weeks ago, and there was just a tremendous volume of refinance business that came through. And what happened was it kind of spooked the secondary market investors that purchased mortgage-backed securities. It was just the volume, the low rate. When you do a refinance, it pays off another loan, which is not an ideal situation for banks and investors. So that's caused mortgage rates to sort of artificially inflate, and unfortunately, it's hurting those that are not refinanced but looking to buy a house. FHA and VA are basically out of the market right now. Some banks have just stopped originating them. Others, like us right now, we're still originating, but we can't even really get a rate that's reasonable. So that's going to be a big impact, I think, moving, or at least in the near future. From a community bank standpoint, like we have portfolio loan programs that we use for certain situations, construction loans, things like that, doctor's loans, that we've kept those very steady. But the Fannie Mae rates, that the conventional 30-year fixed and the government, FHA, VA, are kind of all over the place right now, much higher than I think the public thinks they are.
Thanks, Dan. All right, I told you guys down in the chat, if you're trying to do something with your audio or video and you have a question, let me know down in the chat. How's everyone else doing? I see we have Johanna here. A lot of quiet people, which is good, I guess.
She's still on mute.
Oh,
Can you guys hear me now?
yes.
So we actually had to cross over into Virginia yesterday to do a job site tour for a commercial job that we were installing. And it was really awkward because we had electricians, all of our warehouse guys, 3 of us on the design side, and then the client had like his people in there. So it was, thank goodness we had outdoor furniture at the same time as indoor furniture, and people were in and out. But honestly, like, I sat there and I kept counting how many people were inside this month, because I was like, I swear to God, we're going to get fined. We're going to go to jail. Like, I'm waiting for the fines to come out, because they are saying that they're traveling around looking at job sites. And I do know that people have been stopped on the roads. So it's just an awkward time. It's very, very, very surreal, for sure.
Does Virginia have the same limit as Maryland? Like
So
10?
Virginia's shut down. I don't know what their construction practices are, but I know that we were allowed to go over there and do this install because they got approvals. And I know that they are continuing with construction down there. Laura, do you have any updates?
Yeah, I mean, they're similar to us as far as construction, being an essential service. So, and I think that we've also gotten the same advice that you can go from DC, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware to do job site stuff, essential services, but obviously carry a letter with you.
No, I thought Pennsylvania was shut down for construction. Is that not true?
Pennsylvania is shut down for construction. However, you can still cross over the lines and come back into Maryland because it's Maryland regulation. So I just had somebody that has to go deliver something to a customer in Pennsylvania. He can do that. It's just that they're not, if you're headquartered or your offices are in Pennsylvania, you've got problems.
I tell you,
Oh my God.
Dan, yeah, from my standpoint, we're seeing quite a bit of, I've been talking to builders in equity sources and capital sources just over the last couple of weeks. And we've seen a significant slowdown in capital. I mean, they're skittish. They're not really sure what the world's going to look like in a month or so. So they're skittish. So deal flow is slowing significantly as far as new deals happening. But as far as sales and activity, we're seeing a pretty strong drop off, obviously, in traffic. Sales, are following, but in the Virginia market, we're seeing relative strength. So I'm not sure if the other builders on the call are seeing that, but from the builders I've been speaking with, activity has been okay. It's been enough to justify, keeping the doors open, the sales office is open.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything?
This is Vince. I can't see my picture, but I'm still doing shots for Lennar. Nice thing is that they're still churning out models. So, and because the models aren't open, I'm usually in there at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm able to get the models done, and so I'm still cranking in terms of photography, and just slight toot of the horn to echo what Dennis and Tom said. Since your customers can't get to the models, the photography is, more important now than ever. So just FYI.
Everybody call Vince. Really.
Please.
Hey, Carrie,
Yes.
Hugo can't unmute.
Yeah,
So can you unmute him?
he is unmuted. I'm not sure why that's happening. He was messaging me. Hugo, are you okay? Can you talk? Because it says that you are.
Harry, it could be a system thing where he has to go in and unmute his mic on his actual system.
Oh, right. Remember,
Yeah, he was on his
that did
tablet.
happen. Well, do you want to type something to us, Hugo? Is it too long? Maybe it's too long to type.
Oh, bummer.
No.
So Cindy or Julie, Dylan, if you're still on, I don't see you, or Alan, if you could share what pricing looks like, what your outlook is for pricing. Are you able to maintain your prices? Are you seeing the need for more incentives? How is that looking these days? Anybody?
How about you, Lisa? What are you seeing over at Beazer?
Oh,
We're seeing a lot of, we're really pushing our specs. Again, ensuring that our videos are updated, our photography, our content, really putting a strong process/exercise into place to ensure that we're constantly reviewing this. But as far as an incentive, we've been really focused on closing costs for these specs, and that seems to be working well for us. Those that are concerned and still are feeling uneasy about the new buying process, or even, just touring process, whatever it may be, we are able to really encourage them that it's safe, it's okay, we're with you the entire way, and they're feeling comfortable. So, and with our product and the communities that we're in, closing costs has been very helpful for us.
Awesome.
Celia, where's your face? Can't see you.
Carrie muted. Carrie took my face off, and I actually put it on this morning.
I have it on now.
Okay.
There you go.
I am inviting people back.
Awesome. So did
Some
we get
people
Hugo
think-
figured out?
No, so I told him I'm happy to do a test with him. I mean, I've helped a few people personally and professionally with this. Hugo, it could be something as simple as the little thing on the side of your iPads on mute. But I'm happy to help at a later date, and not with everybody on here. But we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I didn't see any other questions. I was just looking.
No. Yeah, I don't see any either. So just a quick update, and somebody can chime in with something else that they think of, but the Max event that we were going to have in a couple weeks is now going to be June, and Celia, June 17th at the BWI Marriott.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, we are, we got to make a date. We got to, hope for the best. And Lori and the executive committee have meetings every week, and they look at the calendar, and, they're making the decisions based on what's happening around us. I mean, that's all we can do. But the good news is entries are still open for Max. And And we're going to be doing all of our judging online, virtually. So the product judging has shifted. If you haven't gotten an email from me about that and you entered product, you will right when we get off this call. It'll be virtual tours. So it's kind of timely for the conversation I think that we just had here. And it can even be, you know, just as simple as you going through. We have the judging criteria up, so you can speak to each of the judging criteria when you're recording your virtual tour, which you'll upload and submit as a YouTube link, and then we'll have those judged. So let me know if you have any questions.
And obviously, everyone has a need to get together and be social. So once we do come out on the other side, we're hoping that regardless of entries, that you do choose to attend and support the association and the Maryland SMC, because I think we all will need to get together, cheer each other on with your favorite beverage, whatever it may be. But it's just a great time to show fellowship and community for the amazing industry that we're all in. So I hope if you are not participating with members, you participate with attendance, but you still have time to submit entries for every category. So let's do it.
Thanks, Haley.
Yeah, quickly, what I want to speak about is just membership. We appreciate everyone who has retained their membership on the SMC, and we're looking to get more and more individuals in. Obviously, as long as your company has a membership in the Maryland Building Industry Association, you all can join. None of us is as smart as all of us, as was just proven today. We all have a wealth of knowledge that we can share. We are all better together, and we all will come out stronger on the other side of this because of our support of one another and our conversation and communication with one another. So I'm inviting anyone and everyone on this call to please reach out to Carrie and I about joining the SMC. We welcome everything that you bring to the table, and we will continue to have monthly meetings as long as we need to. As I said, we might add a few more in. We're looking for topics. So if anyone on the call has a great topic, whether it's on the design side or the merchandising side or mortgage training because things have changed, we welcome topics for our May meeting. And as I said, we can even do coffee and conversation if somebody wants to do a Zoom for lunch and just take 30 minutes, everyone's eating, and have a conversation about, how mortgages are changed right now. What can we do differently to sell the mortgages during this time period? So please, please, please share any and all ideas with Carrie and I. We welcome them, with Cindy, who is been a great resource for me as I've been chairperson on here. So we just want to make sure we continue to support the membership, grow it, and we're going to look forward to our next meeting in May. We will get that information out. And all thing I have to say is let's stay in business, let's support each other, and let's all stay safe.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody,
Anything
for coming
else,
out.
Carrie or Lori?
I have one other thing, just
Okay.
obviously SMC, Celia touched on SMC membership. We are looking at probably starting a new membership campaign in the next week. We've got some exciting new benefits we're going to offer as an association. But membership is going to be our lifeline right now. We can't have events. It is going to be our lifeline as far as we move forward. So we need all of our active members to help us recruit new members to the association. That's how we're going to be able to get through this as an association. So if you need any resources for that, you can reach out to me or Cindy or Chris. We can get it for you. But if you know anyone that's not a member, I think we've shown our value here. We talked a lot about being able to continue to operate. You can go right over the state line to Pennsylvania and see what's going on over there, and they are not so fortunate. So we really need to get that message across. And if anyone that's not a member that should be, we need to recruit them into our fold during this time. So thanks.
Amen, folks. Amen.
Yep. And some of you may be hearing from me because I've been challenged to do some recruiting. So let's get this done and let's keep our association stronger.
Right. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care of yourselves.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh,
Thanks, guys.
and if you And if you want to share this with anyone on your team, I think Carrie's going to post this on our SMC Facebook page. So that you can watch it on replay, and please type in #replay and any comments that you may have or questions you may have, and we'll filter them to either Lori, Dennis, Tom, or anyone else on the council that can get that answer your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.